BBC Radio Manchester.
Very soon, in my case, it will be in 30 days' time, I'll get a credit card bill which will reflect the money that was spent over Christmas. And it's money that really, I was going to say I don't have. It's money that you spend on a credit card and you think you're not really spending it. But, of course, you are spending it. You've had a good time. But it will be arriving. And, of course, it's a return to reality. However, if your money's tight, what's the best way to tackle the headache when the inevitable demand for payments arrive? With me is the chairman of the Campaign for Fair Finance, and that's Roger Gewolb. Roger joins me now. Roger, good morning and a Happy New Year, by the way.
Good morning, Mike, and a Happy New Year to you and to all your listeners.
Although, Roger, for some of us in a few weeks' time, as I say, mine's about 30 days away, something will be dropping on the mat at the bottom of the post, the letterbox.
With a big thud.
With a very big thud. So what do we do?
As you say, did I really spend that? Well, the first thing that we advise is not to panic. You were very sane when you spent the money. You think about all the enjoyment that you and your family and friends got from it, the food, the booze, the gifts, the evenings out. Don't panic. It's something that you can handle. The first thing we advise is, for goodness sake, don't hide the bills behind the clock on the mantelpiece. Don't bury them in a drawer. Deal with them. Work out a plan. It can be a real shock. It's not a great entry into the new year, no. But start by paying off credit cards, overdrafts, and the rest as quickly as you can, because the faster you pay those, the less interest you're going to pay. Use your own money where you can. Break into your piggy bank. Use your Christmas card fund. If you do have to borrow money, then we advise, look around, search around, compare. Don't grab the first loan that you see. We find that the easiest money is quite often the most expensive. Advertising of loan products is just absolutely huge. It's humongous. So it's very easy to be tempted, especially if you're feeling a bit desperate, to grab the very first thing you see. We strongly advise against that. Search out your local credit union.
What is a credit union, Roger? It's something that I've never used. I've heard the terminology so many times, but I don't know what a credit union is, so educate me.
A credit union is a mutual society, a not-for-profit organization that encourages you to build up some savings and then grants loans to people. And they work within communities, so it's people who live in a certain part of Salford, or people who work in a certain industry. Now, Archbishop Welby, the Archbishop of Canterbury, has got a big push on to increase the presence and the spread of credit unions in this country over the next 10 years to equal what they are elsewhere. As an example, in the United States, credit unions make up approximately 46% of the lending business. In this country, it's 2%. So there's a long way to go. They're much less expensive, and the Archbishop's campaign is to get the credit unions to replace a lot of the very high-cost lenders. So by all means, find your local credit union and have a word with them.
I saw on TV recently, and I'm sure it's not coincidental, an advert for a payday loan company, a national payday loan company, and it was hedged with all sorts of cheery voices and don't worry, we won't let you do this, and we'll check this, and we'll make sure that you don't get yourself in above your head. And then you look at the actual interest rate, and the interest rate's 1,900%. Why do we fall for that?
Well, there's always been a justification for Payday and similar lenders. They've always filled a need, and they always will. The question is, what need are they actually filling? Now, the title Payday means, Mike, that it tides you over till the next time you get paid. Now, if they're lending you money for a few weeks, then the interest rate, the APR, the annual percentage rate, 1,900, 1,200, whatever it is perhaps less relevant, because they're really only getting 60 quid off you, and that barely pays for the advertising. It's when these companies say, well, on top of that, now we're going to do you a favor, we're going to make this loan for a year, and they're getting 12 times as much interest, that's when you have to scratch your head and wonder what's going on. So they are not inherently bad. You just have to look at whom you're dealing with and what they're actually offering you.
Can I just ask you, I will have my credit card bill will come in about 30 days, and I pay my tax around the same time because I'm self-employed. and I roughly know what I'm going to pay out, it won't be a tremendous shock to me. I have friends, and they're intelligent, articulate, highly skilled, erudite people who I know have the most horrendous credit card bills and yet carry their lifestyle on whilst that credit card bill expands. How do we stop that? How do you put a hand up and say, look, I owe this much, I need to deal with this now, and I need to change my lifestyle to a certain extent while I clear this debt? Give us a little sort of a route map for this.
Well, I think there's only one way to do it. If you're in shtuck that bad, you get a pair of scissors and you cut the ruddy thing to pieces. And then when you're back in shape, you ring up the company and say, I'm sorry, I lost my card. Could you send me a new one? And they'll be very delighted to send you one in 48 hours.
Is there a way of paying off those debts by sensibly borrowing money in which the rate of interest is less than, I think it's probably 28% on a credit card? I mean, is there any sense in borrowing money to pay money that you owe?
Well, there's several aspects to that question. The answer could be yes, but I mean, what we advise people is that however much you're tempted by advertising, however much we live in the internet age today, I like to say be old-fashioned. Even though you can click and get a loan in 5 seconds, I always say pick up the phone and call the company. Even though it's wholly on the internet, call them, because I want to know, can I get these people on the phone? What if I have a problem? What if I'm going to be 3 days late? I want to make sure someone answers the phone, and I want to make sure there's a human being on the other end of the line who's going to work with me and help me. So however much I'm intrigued or attracted by their advertising or their website presence, I want to speak to a human being. That's one important tip that we give people. Secondly, look around, shop around, compare. We usually find that easy money is often the most expensive. Look around and find the loan that you want, and then match whether it does make sense to take on that additional borrowing to clear that credit card debt if you can get it for less. And that's going to depend on your credit standing, your credit history, your credit profile, etc. And that's a case for each individual, but you'll know because you'll apply, and then you'll get the credit or you won't. But if you do get offered credit, the final question is, can you really afford this? If actually you shouldn't be incurring more debt, Mike, if you shouldn't be building up debt on top of debt, then you need some help. And we suggest then you go to people like Step Change or the Money Charity or the Money Advice Service or the Church Credit Champions Network is a new group that has appeared that helps people in each community. And you say to them, I'm in a bit of shtuck here. What do I do?
And I have noticed, by the way, Roger, to be fair to the company that provide my credit card, when you phone them up, the first option is, are you having difficulty in paying? And I have phoned a couple of times when I was a day late in paying because I'd forgotten I had to pay it, and they've actually waived a late payment fee just by the fact I phoned them, and it would cost me, say, 15 quid. And they've actually said, oh, OK, now you've phoned us yet, we'll waive that, don't worry about it. So they are there, you can get them on the end of a phone.
You got to make sure the company you're going to take a loan from is going to be on the end of the phone. You're absolutely right. And the Financial Conduct Authority and the Competition and Markets Authority have come down with some new legislation, which means that companies really do have to prove what they call affordability, Mike. In other words, if you tell them you can afford the loan, that's not enough. They've got to make up their mind themselves that you can afford it. So they have to be very, very careful about that. And they do have to offer help. And it's our impression in the Campaign for Fair Finance that most lenders today are doing what you just had done if you contact them in the first 2, 3, 4, 5 days.
Thank you very much. That was great talking to Roger Gewolb. Roger is the chairman of the Campaign for Fair Finance. So take that on board, especially if you do get the thud where your letterbox is, and it's the bill, the post-Christmas bill. And as Roger just said then as well, though, there are so many organisations out there that if you find that suddenly you've really spent more than you should have done, and you are in stum to a certain extent, there are people and organisations out there that will help, and they will give you advice, and the help can often be really practical.